Joining us now to discuss the firing of former FBI Director James Comey, former Assistant Director to the FBI, Bill Gavin, and attorney Barbara Smith. Thank you both for being with us. Let me start, if I may, Bill, with you as a man who's invested his career, his life in the FBI. Your reaction to the president's decision upon the recommendation of both the Attorney General and the the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. Your thoughts?
Well, Lou, it's a fact that had to happen based on what the director did last year in the Hillary Clinton email case. He made a prosecutive decision as the head of an investigative agency, and that's absolutely the wrong thing to do. He's a wonderful guy, a fine person, and I can assure you there's no joy in Mudville tonight. It's a very sad affair that the director is terminated. But when you are director and you are running an investigative agency, I don't care what Loretta Lynch said, even if she asked him to make the prosecutive opinion. He's not in that position to do so. I imagine he was biased by his positions in the Department of Justice before that. But in this case, the ball should have been bounced back across Pennsylvania Avenue into the Justice Department for them to convene a grand jury. He was working an inquiry, Lou, not an investigation. He didn't have subpoena power, none of those things. He couldn't get it before a grand jury. But to make a prosecutive opinion, I'm sorry, that was the wrong decision for this director to make.
You and other former FBI officials telling us at the time that a grand jury should have been impaneled without question. Barbara, your thoughts as a distinguished attorney who has a great regard, I know, for the institution of the FBI and the people who work there. Your thoughts?
Indeed. Well, I think he's an incredibly honorable and ethical man. He's had a very distinguished career. That said, if he lost the confidence of the president and the attorney general, then it was probably time for him to go. And that's sort of the beauty, I think, of our democracy. You can have someone like the director of the FBI that during the day makes hard, tough political decisions and is still at the end of the day politically accountable.
And where do we go from here? The next man up, as it were, is the Deputy Director of the FBI. The number two is Andrew McCabe, who himself has been accused of conflict of interest, Bill, because his wife is a Democrat, a former Democratic candidate who received funding from none other than Governor Terry McAuliffe of Virginia, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, I'm quite sure, Lou, that the next director will come from outside the FBI, just like most of them have come, except for Hoover. We've had directors such as Kelly and Louis Freeh with former bureau experience. But this next director has to come from outside the FBI. To have Andy McCabe named director, that's not going to happen. If he's going to be acting director, I don't know how we can work with that. I'm sure they can go through the transition until a director is named, but a full director of the FBI must come from outside at this particular point in time. I want to nominate Jim Kallstrom, quite frankly.
Well, Jim is a great former FBI agent with a distinguished career, and I'll let him know that of your nomination straight away. Barbara, your thoughts here on next steps. We listened to Chuck Schumer, who questioned the integrity of James Comey in November, who applauded the excellence, the qualifications of Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein as recently as April 24th, a day before he was confirmed to his post. Where are we headed?
Well, I'm reminded of when Attorney General Alberto Gonzales stepped down towards the end of the Bush administration. It was a really contentious time for the Department of Justice then, and there were allegations that the department was too political and senators were going to be unhappy with whoever was nominated to replace him. And I think that President Bush did a really wonderful thing by nominating a former federal judge who was widely respected, whose credentials were unquestioned, whose ethics were unquestioned. And I think President Trump would be well served to follow that path, maybe choose someone that's been on the federal bench for decades and who's widely regarded among the legal community as an esteemed member of that community, and that someone that Senate Democrats can really get behind as fair and a straight shooter.
You know, it's interesting, the suggestion. You know, it's going to be fascinating to watch what proceeds from here. But as the Deputy Attorney General and as Jeff Sessions laid out in their memoranda, this was the only conclusion after what has been a very painful and tumultuous period for the FBI and indeed for the nation. Bill Gavin, Barbara Smith, thank you both for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate it. We're following